Um, a couple things on your screen. You should be seeing me in a purpley blue shirt in the middle here. Underneath that is a chat box. There's a little blank there at the bottom where you can type in. So if you have a question or want to make a comment on something, you can type in the chat box. If you scroll up just a little bit, there's a link to a troubleshooting page. So if you're having any trouble getting connected or with your microphone or something, there's some hints there. Uh, Over to your left then, there's a PowerPoint pod, and underneath that is a video pod. One other thing to your right, way at the bottom under the list of all the names, is I put a free excerpt from the Coaching Questions book, or excuse me, Questions from Jesus book. There we go. It's hard to hold it up and look at the same time. So we're going to do some stuff out of this book. This is one of my latest. So if you want to know more about the metaformation model or praying your desire or something, that's a good resource. At the bottom of the PowerPoints is a link where I put all the stuff I'm going to talk about today there. So if you want to go to the website and look at that, you can as well. But, sorry, I got distracted. Back to down at the lower right in that file pod, that's a free excerpt from the Questions for Jesus book. So if you click on the file name, it will give you a download button, and you can download that for free. And it's got 8 or 10 pages out of the book that you can use. You can also pass that on to anybody you want to because it's totally free. So let's dive in. And as we go, if you have a question, feel free and type it into the chat box. I'll have some times where we can interact with voice as well, but while I'm talking, it'll be easier if you type something in so we don't end up all talking at once. Okay. So just a couple of learning objectives for today. I'm going to introduce you. I've started an organization about 2 years ago called Leadership Metaformation. And what we do is train people in coaching the heart. We have 3 objectives: that you experience heart transformation, that you know how to coach it, and that you know how to lead organizations in building a culture of heart transformation. So we're going to introduce you to one of the basic models that we use there, and then I'm going to give you a tool for coaching deep desires. I'm hoping not to lose my voice, so I'm chewing on a cough drop, so I'm sorry if I get a little garbled or something. Too much talking today. So that's what we're about. In terms of the way I coach has changed quite a bit over the last number of years, and maybe the best way to explain that is through a story. I have a guy I've been coaching named John, and we've been working together for a couple of years. And when John came to me the first time, the issue that he wanted to work on was destiny discovery. And he had some big decisions coming up, and he wanted to, understand more about who he was and what he was supposed to do so he could make good decisions. What was interesting was that as we worked together over the first couple sessions, it just seemed like there was this drive to know there that intrigued me, and so I started asking about that. What's it going to give you to know this? Why does this feel so important to you right now? And in the course of that, John started to tune into some drivenness in himself, a need to push, and we began to work at stepping back and letting Jesus do the work and not him. And over the course of time, as we unpacked some of this stuff, we started to discover that a lot of what he was dealing with was around the issue of being chosen. So he would say things like, we'd be talking about his tendency to overdo and to take a project and to go way beyond what was expected. And as I'm asking him, why do you do that? What's behind that? He would say things like, well, if I don't do really well, maybe they won't choose me the next time. Or if I don't go to this and participate, I might not be chosen. And when he used that word enough, I started to tune into that. And as we talked about being chosen, he hit on a memory of when he was a kid, he made the winning catch in a little league game. And at 8 to 10 or whatever age she was, just catching the ball in little league is a big deal at that age. But he had made the final out and won the game for his team. So his dad was a pastor, and he came to church that night and wanted to tell his dad the wonderful thing that had happened, and waited for the chance to talk to his dad. And when he finally came, his dad said, that's great, and then sort of went on to the next person. And he was disappointed and hurt that he didn't get more attention. And then later on that evening, one of the kids from the youth group that John didn't even know found out that he'd made this great catch. So the youth group kid put him up on his shoulders and paraded him around the church and told everyone that he was the winner of the game. And what John took away from that was this kid that I didn't even know was able to give me the thing that I most wanted that my dad couldn't give me. And he came away from that feeling my dad didn't choose me. Now, up to this point in the conversation, we're talking about things that might be familiar with you from inner healing methodologies like Theophostic or Sozo or something like that, where the person has a set of behaviors, they come out of an emotional memory or a wound, and there's some beliefs attached to it. Like, if I work really hard, people will choose me. What we did with this, though, was take it to a whole nother level. Underneath the beliefs and the emotions and the wound of being hurt is the desire to be chosen, the desire to belong, the desire to be significant to someone and to be special. And so what we did is said, let's go after that. So we never really did any inner healing work. We talked a lot around beliefs and stuff, but one of the big things that we did is John came up with some prayers around this desire to be chosen. One of them was, Jesus, how have you been pursuing me over the last 24 hours? And the idea of the prayer was to have an experience of God touching this unmet need in me. Because your desires are meant to be filled in your relationship with God. They're not meant to be empty. They're not meant to be unmet. So we worked at creating a pattern in his life of filling that desire. Another kind of prayer was, how have you chosen me today? So as he began to get his desire filled in his relationship with God, we came back around to his relationship with his dad. And early in life, he had sort of closed his heart to his father. And I remember there was one day, it was an exciting moment where he came to the coaching conversation and said, I'm going home on furlough, and I'm looking forward to being with my dad. I want to know him, and I want him to know me, and I want him to be a part of my life. And we never did a big healing thing with it. And we never did a bunch of discipline for how you can make yourself go and be a good son, and open your heart to your dad. What we did was we filled the unmet need that started the whole problem in the first place. And when we dealt with that, a bunch of the other stuff went away. Now, it's more complicated than that, but that's a sort of in a nutshell the process. So the idea there that's exciting for coaches is when people do things, there's a good reason they do them. Usually there's a desire or a deep need under it for love or significance or belonging or challenge or freedom or something like that. And if we can tackle that deep need and get that met, all this other stuff starts to go away because the need was the energy that was driving it. So I want to do a little experiment here with you and have you do the same thing that John did about praying your desire. And again, on the slide there, the book Questions for Jesus is a whole. I took every passage in Matthew where Jesus speaks to someone's desire and did a little meditation on it. And then there's 5 desire prayers that you can pray to see what Jesus says to you. But we're going to do an experiment and pray John's prayer. So the prayer is, Jesus, how have you been pursuing me over the last 24 hours? And the idea here is we're just going to take 30 seconds or a minute and ask Jesus that question. And then whatever you hear or what comes into your heart, type it into the chat window. And we'll see what God says. Okay? Go. Now just take whatever impression you had. You might have gotten words, you might have gotten a picture, you might have just felt Jesus smiling at you. But take whatever you heard and just jot that down. Type it into the chat window. And when you're done, you can read what some of the other people have been hearing. Those are great. Now, take a second and reflect as all these responses come up. There's about 40 of you, and I gave you 30 seconds to hear God speak to you. We got an awful lot of responses scrolling up the screen here. I figured out how to pray this way out of some things in my own devotional life, but when I started to, here's a background piece. My wife and I run a business out of our home. And so it's really easy for every conversation to end up being about the business. Did you get that email I sent you? Has so-and-so paid? Did you get a contract from here? We need to talk to this person about. And we often are finding ourselves sort of catching ourselves. It's Sunday. We're not talking about the business today. This is the date night. We're not talking about the business today. It's mealtime. Let's not talk about the business. But it's easy to spend all your time with your mate, if you work together, talking about what you're doing. And what I realized is that's what I did in my prayer life, is I could spend all my time talking to Jesus about what I was doing. And if you think about the common prayers that we pray, Jesus, help me do this. Jesus, what do you want me to do in the future? Jesus, what's my destiny? What will I be doing in 5 years? And the thing about those prayers is, for instance, tell me what to do. What that prayer is often really about is, tell me what to do so I won't get it wrong and get punished. Tell me what to do because I'm afraid that you'll hurt me if I don't get this right. Or, what is my destiny? Tell me what I should be about because I'm afraid I'll lead an insignificant life. So those prayers, when we're asking for our destiny or we're asking for direction or we're asking for help, are really often about this deep desire that I have in me for love or security or belonging or to be approved or something like that. But instead of asking for the thing I really want, we ask for something in this world that I think will give me what I want. So we ask to know what God has for my future. Because if I know, I'll feel secure. So the thing is, when I stopped praying those kind of prayers, and I started praying prayers like, Jesus, what do you like about me today? Or, tell me again how I belong to you. or freedom. What's something that I'm free to do today that you really don't care whether I do it one way or the other? When I started praying those kind of prayers that were about our relationship, my percentage of answered prayer went up about 1,000%. And my takeaway from that is, oh, this must be what you want to talk about. Because when I start talking about this, you got a lot to say. And oftentimes, we can ask those directional prayers over and over and over and not hear anything. And it never occurs to us that maybe the reason we're not hearing anything is that Jesus isn't very interested in talking about this. And by not answering, he's trying to get us to focus somewhere else. So all that is to say, when you ask your clients to pray this way, it's amazing what they will hear and how readily they'll hear. And it's not that no one ever has an obstacle, but usually when I introduce this to people, they're like, oh my gosh, what if people don't hear? And the first time someone asked me that, I stopped and I thought for a minute and I said, I'm not sure that's ever happened. So this style of prayer makes it easy for people to hear God. So I wanted you to get a little bit of an experience of what this is like. So let me give you a bit of background on what it comes out of, and then we'll stop and take a few questions. So this is the model of the heart we use in leadership metaformation. And the idea of this, biblically, the heart is everything inside of you, all that goes on in you. So when Jesus says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, what he means is what you say with your mouth comes out of who you are, what's inside of you. So action, biblically, is the product of the heart. It's what comes out of the heart. But we can take this heart part and break it down a little farther. And I like to, when I think about how the heart changes, these levels are helpful. The first one here is the mind, which is my conscious, what goes on in my head from moment to moment. So I have thoughts and I have feelings and I have decisions in my mind all the time. Now, the science of the mind is that much of what goes on in my head from moment to moment comes from this deeper subconscious layer. And I name that identity. So my beliefs, my wounds, my vows, my memories, my self-concept. This is the layer of who I've become in the course of my life, or what life has made me. So I act out of what is going on in my head, but much of what's going on in my head is out of this identity thing that I've accumulated over life. But there's another layer below that of desire. And desire is the fundamental drive or need or motivation that powers all of this. So one of the things Paul says is in Romans 7, I want to do what's right, but I can't do it. Because whenever I set out to do what I want to do, there's this other law in my members, in my humanness, that fights back against me and makes it impossible for me to do what I want. And what he's talking about there is when I, in the mind level with my will, try to discipline my behavior, but my desire wants the opposite, guess who's going to win? My desire. So when people come to you as a coach, usually they've tried to discipline themselves on this thing and it hasn't worked. So they're right in that conundrum that Paul talks about. Is I've encountered something that my will is not powerful enough to beat, and that's my desire. So as a coach, if I know how to fill that desire and change it and redirect the power of it, I've got a great new tool for changing people. So if we take the example I gave of John, he was acting in some interesting ways. He was overdoing it. He was overcommitting. He was doing more than he needed to. It came out of some things in his mind. I feel like I need to do this. I have an opportunity, I ought to pursue it. And that came from some identity pieces. There was the emotional memory of not being chosen that was painful, that he was trying to stay away from. there was also the beliefs of, like one belief he expressed was, if you sit at home, you're not going to be chosen. That I have to get myself out there and do a lot of things to be chosen. So his identity was driving these actions, but underneath it all was this chosen thing, the desire to be special. And that's what powered the actions. So, I want to give you a picture so that we can sort of relate to this of what desire looks like. So I'm going to play this video about what is love. Oh, before I do that, real quick, we have this set of cards that we made up that have desires, and there's a set of emotions and so forth. They're great for party games and stuff, but I use them a lot just for helping people tune into their desires. And if you'll notice the little guys on the card, the desire to belong in the middle is the true desire. Up above that is the fear of not belonging. So when I don't get belonging, I have two choices of how I respond. One is to live in this cringing fear posture. I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of not belonging. So I guard my heart and I put walls around me. The other way is I can choose to grasp after belonging. I try to be popular. I try to manipulate people. Maybe I become one of those life-sucking vampires at your small group that always has to talk about their issue. But these cards help people talk about their desires and their emotions. So there's 16 desires, like peace over here on the PowerPoint, that people go after. So let's take a look at this video and let it touch you, and then we'll talk about that a little bit. Oops.
I don't count it a burden, whatever, to have to care for her. I need to do everything. From the moment she gets up to the moment she goes to bed, I do absolutely everything. Clean her teeth, shower, dress, everything. But it's a privilege. I count it a great privilege to care for this one that I've loved all of these years and continue to love. This is the year when we'll celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. Our stories have been a lovely story. I first saw her when she was 8 years old, and her brother became my best friend. We grew up together, and as we grew up, yeah, she was there. And I knew that she used to stare at me when I was playing footy with her brother and another friend, and when we used to ride bikes, and she kept staring at me, but I wasn't interested. I was 17, she was 16. I saw her dolled up, dressed up, and she had an A-line dress on, and boom, it was gone. She was the one for me then, absolutely. When we first started dating, I used to ride my bike from where I lived to where she was, and that was about 5 kilometers on a Saturday afternoon, because it was the only chance we had to get together. And it was hair wash day for her, and she used a special cream in her hair for a shampoo, and I can still smell it because that smell was so particular, so nice. It was just absolutely special. We had a bike. I used to ride everywhere on my bike, and then Glad had a bike as well, and we put a baby chair on the front of her bike, and so we carried our babies around on the bike with her as well. So yeah, bike's been part of our lives, and I guess that has something to do with us now. Around about 2004-05, I began to notice that there were things going wrong. She was finally diagnosed with the horrible disease of Alzheimer's. Having lived overseas, I knew that with a bike you can do lots of things. So I had a bike made, a bike chair made. We take it to the beach and ride along beside the beach. And as we do that, we see lots of people. A lot of people come talk to us because it's a unique thing. Nobody else has got a bike chair quite like that one. I am determined to care for her every need, every need. You see, God has loved us so unconditionally. And I understand that God has put his love in my heart. And because I realize how much God has loved me, that's how I too can love my lovely wife. She has done so much for me. over all of these years. Now she can't, but I can, and I can return her love. And it's a love that, well, to me, means I can do everything for her. She's my princess, I'm her William, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Would you have it any other way? No, not at all. We love each other.
I like that video. So think for a minute. That touches our emotions. I tear up when I watch that. But what does that make you want? What does that make you yearn for? What longing stirs in your heart as you watch that? Take a few seconds and type into the chat window. What do you want to be? What do you want to receive? What do you want in life out of seeing that? So it taps into our desires for love, for joy. A couple people have used the word selfless. It's to do well, to come through, to be the hero. Um, those are things that we all desire. And those are good things that are put inside of us by God that get twisted by life when they're not met. When I don't get love, I guard my heart and I start to be afraid of being rejected and I put walls around myself. Or I try to grasp something and try to get it for myself in unhealthy ways. But the underlying thing is really good. So what I want to do is take a minute and do another of these prayers because experiencing this is a big part of being able to do it as a coach. So try this one. Jesus, he called his wife his princess. What am I to you? So take 30 seconds and ask him that question. We'll see what he says. So take a few seconds and jot down what you heard there. Who are you to Jesus? Now, one of the keys of doing this kind of thing is when you start doing this with clients, people will often default to theological answers. You'll say, ask Jesus, how have you been pursuing me today? And they'll say, well, at the cross, Jesus. And I'll stop them at some point and say, now, that's a good answer, but what you have to understand about the heart, identity and desire, is they're shaped by experience. They're not, your identity isn't something that you come up with by rational thought. It's something happens to you and you decide what it means and you remember it in a certain way and it shapes you. So something that's formed by experience can only be changed by experience. It isn't changed by logos, it's changed by rhema. Faith comes by rhema, faith comes by hearing and hearing the rhema of God. It's the experience of God speaking to you that gives you faith, not the idea that you ought to hear God speak to you. So anyway, as you work with people on this, make sure they move from from logos to rhema, and they're really hearing him say something active. So just to let me say one more thing and we'll stop and discuss. When your clients come to you, usually there's something they want. I want to lose weight, or I want to sleep better, or I want to get a better job, or I want to know my destiny. The thing that they want, the object, always has a desire behind it. Why do you want to know your destiny? Well, I want to lead a meaningful life. And what would that give you? Well, then I'd feel significant. So there's a desire behind the object they're going after. And the beauty of this praying your desire approach is I can take someone with any goal or any need and I can give it to them in a minute. Well, Jesus can give it to them, but I can facilitate that encounter. So instead of having to set a 3-year goal to go to university and get the degree to become something, and that may well be a legitimate goal, but there's something you want behind that. If you want to be recognized and respected, we can go right to Jesus right now and say, Jesus, what do you respect about me? And you can hear a word that touches your heart and changes something inside of you. And that's wonderfully powerful as a coach, that I can give you the thing that you've always wanted in a minute. People seem to like that a lot. So that's the power of this tool for your coaching. So let's take a couple minutes. What questions do you have? What would you want to ask me? And you can either type stuff into the chat window, or else you can ask a question verbally. You'll have to unmute yourself if you want to ask verbally. But what is stirring in you as we're talking about this that you'd like to discuss a little bit? If you're trying to talk, I'm not hearing you, so you'll have to unmute yourself. Do you coach non-Christians with this model? Good question. People, if they're okay with God being part of the conversation, most people in America believe in God. So if you say, hey, would you like to hear God speak to you in the next minute? Do you want to know how much God loves you? Well, he can tell you right now. That's not a real hard sell. Can I turn the video off? Is the video still playing? It's not playing for me, but if it is for you, yeah, I'm not sure how to do that. It shouldn't be playing. I'll do that. There we go. Hopefully that'll turn it off. Where do you go from here in the conversation? The idea behind this is on one of my PowerPoints. Moving ahead, is that behavior reveals what's in your heart. What's driving your behavior is a desire. If I can fill this desire in your relationship with God, the pressure to get it filled in unhealthy ways goes away. So once it's filled, and then I can do the discipline thing that I want to discipline myself with works. If my desire is fighting against my will is going to lose. So there's all kinds of issues that can be dealt with just by filling desire. I had a guy once I coached in a demo he had been hairdresser to the stars and worked with all these celebrities and whatever. And God led him to take 2 years off and go to a ministry school for ministry preparation. And after that, he couldn't get back into his career. None of the doors were opening. And so he came up to be coached. And I said, well, if you became that, what would it give you? And he just talked about, being somebody. So I said, tell you what, let's take a minute and just, Jesus, how am I special to you? And he sat there and prayed for a little bit and in front of a group of people. And a minute later, I asked him, so what'd you hear? And I forget exactly what he said, but then I asked him, so how's that impact you? And he's like, man, it's like a drug. It's right here. I feel it. He left the meeting and went outside to journal and pray for 20 minutes before he came back in because he was so touched by Jesus speaking to his desire. So this changes people, and you'll see them do things that they can't do just because their desire got filled. Somebody else, you got a question? Something you want to know? You can say something if you want with your microphone. You just have to unmute yourself. Is there a teaching tool? What do you mean by that? While she answers my question, somebody else can ask one. On the teaching tool thing, I do leadership metaformation. We have a set of intensive trainings in how to do this and a bunch of other stuff like it. So if you go to that link at the bottom of the PowerPoint, it shows some of the courses that we have coming up. We have 3 different courses. One of them is about engaging the heart in your direct connection with God, and this technique is taught in that course. It's called Transforming the Heart. There's another course about engaging with people, and a third one about meeting God in circumstances that deals with helping people see their story from the perspective of heaven instead of from the perspective of earth, which is really powerful. So if you're interested in teaching tools, there's that training. We also have a growing body of stuff on the internet on Coach 22 and on metaformation.com to do that. Will I be coming to the UK soon? Maybe. I'm talking to some people about that. If you're interested in this in your country, sign up for the newsletter on meta-formation.com because you'll hear about what's coming. But shoot me an email and let me know, and I'll file that away. And if there's somebody fomenting to bring me to a country, I'll put you in touch with them so you can foment together. So I want to do a demo here and just show you what this looks like in a coaching context. And keep in mind, I'm giving you little pieces of something that I might teach over a whole day. So if things seem like there's something missing, there is. But I can only do so much in an hour. So anyway, Ken's going to join us, and I'll let him say a little bit about himself, but I'm going to coach him a little bit. So let me pan over here.
Hi guys.
So Ken, tell us 2 or 3 sentences about you.
2 or 3 sentences. I love Jesus. I love hearing from him. This something has clicked in me lately over the last few months, and the times that I sit down in the morning have become more about listening and writing what Jesus is saying, other than pouring out my prayers. It's an amazing time, and I love what he's telling me, and it's all about relationship, and what's so powerful is that the business part of the relationship just kind of takes care of itself. I don't have to worry about it anymore.
So is this change partly from going through the metaformation stuff?
Big time.
Okay, good. And you, and again, 2 sentences about you. What do you do?
I love on kids in Mexico. God has allowed me to serve down there, and I'm building a children's home, taking volunteers down, and just allowing them to see how special they are to Jesus.
Cool. So as you're watching the coaching interaction, here's a couple things to look for. What's the desire? How do we find it? how's the desire connected to the action or what's happening in him? So we'll start with an emotion, what he feels, and there's a connection between that and the desire. So what's that connection? And then look for what happens with Ken when we connect that desire with Jesus. So we're going to start with emotion. So what do you want to start with?
Okay. Well, one that always comes back to haunt me is if I'm working on a car or building something that's not cooperating, my tendency is to go to anger and hope that nobody's in earshot to hear what flies out of my
mouth. Talk about haunt me. That was interesting. What do you mean?
Well, it's kind of like it's the fallback. Mm-hmm. It's like that's where I fall in more so than anything. And I've spent some time talking with Jesus about this, and one it's like it just keeps coming back.
Okay.
It's too easy to go there.
Okay. So now we could work at disciplining yourself to not have this happen. But what we're going to do is take the behavior and the surface behavior and just ignore it and go to the desire that's under it. So think of the most recent incident when this happened. And I won't ask you to say what you said.
Good.
But put yourself back into that. What was the most recent situation? Or a recent situation that you remember.
I mean, today I was changing lock sets on a door and would catch myself doing goofy things and have to redo them, and it would just start coming up even in the midst of the situation where it didn't need to.
Okay. All right. Now the heart is much more easily accessed through emotions than it is through rational thoughts. So what I'm going to do here is explore his feelings. So as you put yourself in that situation, you put in a lock in, you just realize that you put it in backwards or whatever it is that you did. What are you feeling in that moment? And feel free and use the cards.
Okay.
This is where we use these desire and emotion cards. Is it puts the words in front of people and helps them connect with something.
Angry's a good one.
Okay.
And that's an emotion. Anger, emotion card.
Here's what the anger card looks like. They all have little faces on it. What else?
Along with that, I look at the list on there. There's frustration and a little bit annoyed at myself.
Mm-hmm.
A little disappointed, but I don't feel sad. I just feel like, I can do this. I mean, am I really going senile at 59 years old?
So let's for the interest of time, let's look at the anger one.
Okay, good.
So just feel the feeling and talk to me about it.
Okay. Well, the anger comes because it's not that I don't understand the process. It's that I'm overlooking or missing something, and I know I can do it.
So who are you angry at?
I guess myself.
Okay. And when you're angry at, again, feel the anger at yourself. Anger is an unmet expectation, something that I wanted that I didn't get. So what did you not get that makes you angry, or what did you not?
I didn't get the job done right the first time. and the satisfaction of being able to move on.
Okay. Now, there's a couple beliefs there which we could go to some other time and would be profitable, but I'm going to stick on the desire front here. So, and I'll switch sides of this. We could go down the negative side of what makes me angry, but I'm going to switch over and say, let's say you replaced, how many locks did you replace today?
About 8.
Okay. So let's say you did all 8 of those and you did a few more because you did so well with the first 8.
Okay.
Everything went smoothly. You're really pleased with how it came out. Imagine yourself, you're putting the tools back in the truck after the last one. What does it give you to have it all have gone right?
A feeling of competence. It gives me peace knowing it's done. Knowing my time has been used wisely.
What's touching you right there? When you said knowing it's done, your voice changed.
Um,
It's done and done right in the way it's supposed to. What does that give you?
in a way, I guess it's significance too.
What does it mean if you've done it right and done it on time? And what does it mean about you?
Well, it means I feel good about myself and my use of time and my abilities.
Okay. And if you don't use your time well or you don't use your abilities well, what does that mean, or what do you fear that would say about you?
I guess it kind of goes down the road of of value.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not valuable if I don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody can screw these up.
So when you think of this situation, you got value and significance there. Which of those is strongest for you? In that, are you mad because you're feeling I have no value? Or are you more mad because you're feeling I have no significance?
I think more along the line of value.
Okay. So let's try something. So envision yourself replacing, take the one of the 8 locks that went worst.
Okay. The one that I took off and put back in a box and said, we'll do a new one.
Okay. So put yourself in that situation and say, Jesus, how am I valuable to you in this moment? And see what he says.
He said, you're my son.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot of value. It doesn't mean what I do, it's who I am.
Okay. So put yourself in that situation where it all went wrong. And let it soak into your heart. I'm your son right now.
Yeah.
So now go back and think about your day and the whole lock process. Does that change how you see it? How you feel about it?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, it's the difference between sitting in a pigsty and eating pig slop, wondering how you could get on your dad's good side, to sitting at the table and just being loved by him.
So if you're coming up to a task that might get frustrating, does this give you something that you could do that would change? Let's say tomorrow you have to fix a car and you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
What could you do that would help you be in this mode that you're in at this moment, as opposed to the I'm valueless?
Kind of come in the whole different door. Just, of spending time and listen to. I want to sit down and I want to write this out, and I want to take that through the day, so that it's like it's not me going to do the task, but it's the two of us.
Okay. So you might pray, Jesus, how can we do this together? Or how do you see me right now in this moment? Or tell me again how I'm your son.
Yeah.
So you're feeling more full in that?
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. So step back for a minute, and any reflections on this conversation you want to share with the group? What was helpful? What was impacting? That kind of thing.
Again, the space to think and not be taken down one of your thoughts, but to allow Jesus to speak to me, and then for you to speak into that. It affirms. It affirms what he's saying to me.
And you mean that I'm taking what he's saying to you seriously, or?
Yeah. Because I think that was one of the biggest hurdles for me when I started all this, was hearing and going, is that really you? And I mean, there's so many times that I wrote down and he'd say, yeah, it's me. So yeah, that is a huge help.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, just one comment before I ask you guys to comment. Oh, we're almost out of time. Western Christians spend a lot of time struggling with, is this me or is it God? My challenge for you would be, can you find any verse in the New Testament that teaches you how to distinguish between the voice of your own heart and the voice of God? There are verses about distinguishing between the voice of God and the voice of the devil, but honestly, I can't find them. And so the question I have is, if these guys were so unconcerned about this issue that Paul never once wrote about it, and we spend all this time on it, we got to be doing something wrong. And when I coach people about hearing God, usually the issue is not, it doesn't take very long to find out that they've already heard him. It's just that they don't believe that they've heard him. So some of what we're doing here, my contribution as a coach is to create an atmosphere of faith where this person can connect with God and be touched directly. And I don't have to do a lot except take what they hear seriously, believe they can hear, make it a matter of fact process. And then Jesus does his thing. So, what comments or questions on that? Does anybody have something you want to ask? Ask quickly or forever hold your peace. Gene, do you ever have a situation where a client responds in a way you know Jesus would never speak? Almost never. I can think of a couple situations that were borderline, but no. um, Now, I tend to work with leaders and people that have some background in Christianity, but yeah, I mean, do we believe that Jesus speaks to people or not? Do we believe that this person has a relationship with God or not? Either we're going to believe that or we're not going to believe that. So we're so afraid that something might go wrong sometimes that we don't even try. I think it's better to try. Um, so let me just a couple things to wrap up here, and then I'll stick around for a few more minutes for questions. Oh, Jenny asked if I would give them homework. The kind of follow up to this is here. In number 3, we need to fill this desire regularly, because this is not going to change with just a one experience. The way I like to envision it is you have this whole pile of experiences over here that have taught you that you're not a son and that you have to perform in order to get approval. For that to change, we've got to start piling up a bunch of experiences that teach you the opposite. And at some point, the balance will shift when it gets heavier on the other side. But one experience is not going to change that. So I want to help people create a daily or a whenever you're in the situation pattern of I need to hear over and over again from Jesus how I'm a son and how I'm accepted and how I'm approved. Because usually the one-time thing won't do it. The one-time thing is really powerful, but when you make a pattern of it, it's even more powerful. So, just a couple resources to end here. Transforming the Heart is one of the trainings that we do. There's 3 of them. If you want more details, they're on metaformation.com. And these are the most powerful training events I've ever done. People have incredible testimonies from doing them, and they're out there changing the world with this stuff. So I'd love to have any of you if you're inclined to come. We have 3 events scheduled for March, May, and July here in Reading. I've also got an event in Texas and one in Alaska coming up in the next couple of months. The 2 resources that I mentioned, if you go to coach22.com/webinar.html, you'll see the signups for the courses and the book and the desire cards there. The cards are cool. You can do icebreakers with the emotion cards and all kinds of fun stuff. There's a little booklet in with them that has 10 different games you can play with the cards too, and that's really valuable. There's also 2 more webinars in this series if you're not signed up for them. Following the Emotion to Desire and the Guardians of the Heart. So if you go back to the calendar page, or if you go to metaformation.com and click on the webinar link, that'll take you to a page. There's more than one page of listings of the webinars, so if you don't see what you want, go to the next page. I did record this. I will try to post it online. I just have never done that before, so once I figure it out, I'll let you know. But today is the first time I've done a webinar, so yeah, I'm still learning. So I'm going to stick around for a few minutes. If anybody's got any questions, feel free and type them in, or you can talk as well if you got a microphone, and I'll see if I can answer some of them. So thanks for coming.